What's up, people? So this is from my last video. Ignore that for now. We'll change it up if we got to. But so I want to take this conversation to a whole different level, and it's basically the premise of why I even have begun to make these videos about economics and stuff. So first of all, the thing that I learned was how fractional reserve banking works, and I said, "Wow, that's a big old scam." And people who do it, they never want to, tell anybody. Uh, I have reason to believe there's probably a lot of economists that are more or less, hired by these bankers, to kind of, try to promote the idea that fractional reserve banking is somehow not only legitimate but maybe even necessary in our economy. They always try to say something like, "Oh yeah, like without fractional reserve banking, how could people get loans?" It's like, dude, you get it from people that have money. Duh. I mean, I don't know. So I learned that, and I'm like, whoa, y'all there. That's was the first thing that made me realize that something was fundamentally messed up in our economy. And beyond that, I've come to understand a lot of other stuff about it as well. And I've come to understand that there is a fundamental problem with capitalism. And the way that I explain it is like it's been working for a while, you know, but we've outgrown it. We've outgrown it as a civilization. It began like being just trading. Like I always go back to this example of people just living in the jungle, and two tribes meeting up, and then kind of as like a peace offering, kind of trading with each other, and then that eventually growing into you know economies where people traded all types of stuff. They specialized in certain things and traded, and I mean, it worked, but now it's grown into like this monster. It's a freaking monster. It's no joke. And I mean, I'll give you an example. It's actually profitable to mess up people's drinking water, tap water, so that people will have incentive to buy bottled water. Now that just sounds like, oh, nobody would do that. Are you sure? Because I'm not sure. Because there are some super greedy people in this world who don't seem to care about the well-being of anybody, but rather look at everybody as an opportunity to make money, and they'll exploit that. I've already seen it. Look at the medical industry with pharmaceuticals and stuff. I believe that a lot of what they call, I believe they make up drugs that have certain effects that can possibly look like a cure or something helpful to certain diseases, and they'll market those as, look, this will help you with this disease, when really half of those drugs are poison. You know what I'm saying? And you can see how the incentives of capitalism to make profit actually incentivizes, creating problems for people. If you're selling a solution, it's profitable for people to have problems, and you can really easily make problems for people. It's a terrible. It sounds like you might say nobody's gonna do that. They already do it, dude. They do it all the time. They don't care about you. They care about money. People are selfish. A lot of people are selfish, and they will literally they are there's a black market for organs these days. They'll literally kill people, cut out all their organs, and sell their organs. Okay, let's look at endangered species. Okay, there's a market for ivory. Okay, you have people who are broke and desperate over in random countries where there's elephants and rhinos and stuff, who will literally go kill every single one they can find just to make a couple dollars so they can survive. And that takes me to the next level of how this whole system's messed up. Certain people have managed to basically dominate this economic landscape, and then everybody else is just more or less starving, almost like slaves. And that's when you get desperate people who do anything for a dollar. Not only will they go kill a rhino, they'll become a soldier and go kill their fellow man just to survive, to put some food on the table, to feed their sons and daughters. You know what I'm saying? If you look at random countries in Africa, I don't know every single country in Africa. I'm not like a geographer or anything like that, but I hear like Sierra Leone. I hear they have the diamond thing going on, and I hear some of those people are basically getting like a couple cents a day to work in these mines, slave away, to extract their own resources from their own land, hand them to these random people, just so they can afford like a meal at the end of the day. And you know how ridiculous that's a vampiric economic system. That's what that is. And that is, and that's clearly, and it wouldn't even be possible. I mean, unless we were working with this system of capitalism, of profit. And I don't even think people would be like doing that at all. Like, I guess there's greedy people. And that's the thing, whenever people have this idea that capitalism is all fair. If you understand fractional reserve banking, first of all, that's basically fraud. Okay. Two, if you understand how certain people have access to money because their friends own a bank or something, and that bank can just create it on the spot, and then that person can take that money and like buy up entire sectors of the economy, then you understand how these people got rich. And you understand it's not fair. It's not fair at all. These people, certain people have access to money. A lot of that money being just created through fractional reserve banking fraudulently, basically. And that's actually how the people who own this apartment complex came to own this apartment complex. And I know that's how it works because I looked into it. That's something I want to get into is real estate investing. And I know that's how it works. You go to a bank, you put up a little bit of money, they give you the rest, they create it on the spot. And you could buy an entire apartment complex, then own it, and then you have the tenants paying you every single month. You don't have to do a dang thing. They're paying you every single month, going to the hard labor jobs and working for a paycheck and then handing it to you just to keep a roof over their heads. That's how it works. That's capitalism. And these people have already come to own like everything, and everybody else is like living in serfdom. Me paying rent, that's serfdom. I owe my landlord. It's a serf. I'm a serf. Yeah, it's messed up. And I do have ideas of how to fix this. It's not just goodwill. I know it don't work like that. I know people ain't just gonna be like, okay, well here's everything you need and just be fun and fair and trade with each other. No, people are stingy and selfish. So I still do believe in trading. I believe in trading. But I do believe in. I have a different idea of how money should be created. Because the fundamental problem to me, one of the fundamental problems, besides the whole just idea of capitalism itself, is fractional reserve banking, and that is basically fraud in my eyes. And it allows certain people access to money and other people's, not only does it allow certain people access to money, but you might be holding on to dollar bills, and the banks are just creating it, inflating it. It's losing value while it's in your savings account. And before you know it, you worked your whole life for your 401k retirement fund. Before you know it, the value of that's going to be nothing because these people have just been just printing it like crazy. And I think Ron Paul said it was like an invisible tax. Inflation is an invisible tax, and that's crazy. So for one, I think we should get rid of fractional reserve banking. For two, there should not be like money monopolies in the world. There should be like all types of competing currencies. But three, I have an idea of how at least one currency can be state produced, basically. And literally, and this might sound radical, but you have to understand the logic behind it. It's not once you understand it. I mean, that's the thing. Whenever you're trying something new, you gotta something new. It's not the old same old run of the mill stuff. It's gonna sound different. But there's logic behind it. I'll try to get into it. An idea for a state-run money supply is to, instead of tax people to pay for, various public projects, literally just create money to do so and hand that money over to the people who are actually doing the labor so it can be introduced into the market. And then those people, when they get their paycheck for building roads or schools or being teachers or cops or whatever, they can go and spend it on food and whatever else they need to live. That's simple. And that could just be one type of currency or one type of money among a bunch of other different monies. And that's the thing, you have to understand how the value, how money even has its value, for one. If you don't understand that, you're going to be like, well, how is that going to work? So that's the thing. And that's what I was trying to explain with this. Money has value based on the supply of it and the demand for it, and it's just like any other good, just like any other good. And there's plenty of other goods that have values. And that's the thing. Like there should not be money monopolies because if everybody's like forced to hold on to the dollar, for instance, and these people are just printing it, they're ruining the value of it. You should not be forced to use that. There should be options. There should be. You know what I mean? It's a monopoly, and that's what it should be called out as. It is a monopoly. There's different currencies in the world, different monies around the world, but like in one country, they basically say this is money, nothing else. And it's like no, I mean, obviously there's multiple monies in the world. Why? I mean, it's been working this long. I mean, way back when they had I mean, dude, money is just this thing. It's a middleman. That's all it is. You have your item, you want that item, you just trade for this item, so then you can trade for that item. It's a middleman. That's all it is. It's that simple. And there can be all different types of middlemen. Whatever you trust to be the middleman, use it. And that's the thing. If we're using the dollar and it's going down in value, we shouldn't even trust it, much less use it. You know what I mean? It's like, dude, no. We should be having options. This could be anything we want it to be. You trade, and honestly, really, if you could just trade what you have directly for something else, I mean, that's fine too. That's simpler. But money's useful because it's incremental. You know, usually there's a group of people that all agree to use it, and you know, so if you want what this guy has, but he doesn't want what you have, you just trade for what you have for money to somebody who does want what you have, you know, and then trade that money for that thing, and it works out. It's the middleman. It's like that's what everybody's gonna do. Like if I make shoes and I want a sword, the guy with the sword doesn't want his shoes, I gotta find somebody who wants shoes that has money so I can trade my shoes for money, and then I'll trade the dude money because he will trade the sword for money. Why will he trade the sword for money? Because he can trade the money to somebody else, because there's a group of people that agree to use it as the middleman, to trade their goods and services for money. And really, with any money that there is, there's a circle or a group of people that are willing to trade their goods and services for it. So there's a kind of like a group where that money is actually considered money, where it's used. So, for instance, like if you come to the United States and you want to do business, you have to get your hands on some dollar bills. You go to China, you got to get their currency. So there's different groups. You can already see that. And if there's competing currencies in any economy, that's all it is. It's different groups. Already like it is with different countries. It's just there can be different groups with different monies. And honestly, if I go to a supermarket, I want to see options. I don't think there should be just one money that's accepted. That's a monopoly. You know, you call it money racism, what you want to call it. But it's a monopoly. I want to see multiple different payment options, not credit or debit. No, I want to see dollar, gold, silver, Bitcoin, something else. You know, I want to see different options, and they'll be competing with each other, and the value will be determined by their supply and demand. And if there's competition between different monies, they'll be managed a lot better. Certain monies will drop off the face of the earth if they're not managed well. People just quit using them, and they'll just be worthless. You can already see that happening with these cryptocurrencies. Some of them have remained legitimate because they're people actually trust them. Other ones were created and kind of were speculated on for a little while, and then they just drop back to nothing because they were not trusted. And it's the same thing. There's competition, and the ones that are legitimate will stay. You see what I'm saying? And that's how it should work. And the thing I was saying with the government printing money instead of taxing people is more or less, it depends on the value that money has in the market. Like I said, the supply and demand. So if the value is high, the government doesn't have to print a lot to pay for services, labor or services, whatever. If the value is low, then it's going to have to print a lot, and I mean, it might not work out. And that honestly is good because it puts a limiting factor on what the government can spend money on. If people wanted, they could just go on like a government money strike and say, let's not use it anymore, and then it'll strip the value of the money that the government has. And it could print all it wants, but it's worth its paper, you know? And I personally say as well, I don't believe in the federal government really having its own money. I think that's too big of a region. I think every state, like in America, should have its own money because it's more manageable. And people already have their local governments that manage stuff like schools, roads, etc. So every state should have their own money, you know? And The federal government, I don't see the need for it. I don't see it. If anything, that just sets the situation up for abuse. You know, that's the reason they put the uh, states, the limitations of power in the Constitution and everything, because they knew federal government was not a very good idea. You know, it becomes, power crazy, whatever. So yeah, I think the states or the smaller regions, each having their own money is a lot better. It's more manageable, and you have more of a direct control over what money is being printed for, created for. Like you'd be more involved in the local democracies and involved in decision making for what money should be spent on and created for. Roads, airports, schools, whatever. And that's a lot more manageable. And I think eventually we should get to a point where it's just kind of agreed upon, like with local governments to like kind of make sure everybody has like the basic necessities of life. Like I see people who are like living on the streets and are like, they can't work, dude. They're like almost dead, like literally. The least we could do as humans is like make sure they're like living comfortably, while they're in the state they're in. It's like we already neglected them enough that they're like dying out there. So I think we're at that point, in our civilization that we can afford that. We can, but a lot of people say that's gonna make people lazy. Well, okay, well, just give them crappy places or something. Like, you don't gotta give them luxurious stuff. Just make sure they got the basic necessities. Because some people literally can't work, dude. They're literally out there. Like I've seen handicapped homeless people. They cannot work, dude. Like I know they can't. And don't fool yourself. I know they can't. And basic necessities like that, healthcare, stuff like that. I think we're at that point, dude. We can afford that as a civilization. We have the technology, we have the resource. And honestly, here's another thing. Like I was saying, the local government should manage the situation. Like the federal government loves to borrow a whole bunch of money by creating bonds and selling them, whatever, and whatever. It gets its hands on a lot of money, taxes you, and it'll go and spend it on crazy stuff. Like it's going and sending soldiers, literally paying soldiers' paycheck to go overseas and like do crazy stuff, like in random countries that has no business in. Like, what is that? All those people, all those resources that are going towards crazy stuff could be going towards communities. And that right there is just another aspect of poor management. It's like, why? And that could be remedied by, having a more localized system of control over what resources are being utilized for. That's the thing. We need to invest in our communities, not in wars overseas. Like, what is that? You got the federal government handing money over to random countries with what they call foreign aid. What are you doing? What? We're already in. That's insanity. Yeah, so that's just terrible management. It's obvious. And just considering this, I mean, how should I say it? I think, like I said, right now it seems like it might be a radical idea. It's going to take people some time to, like, consider it and, like, really understand how it's actually very applicable, plausible, whatever. It's very simple. It's simple stuff. Once you understand how money gets its value and everything, kind of just explained it. It's simple. There already is multiple competing currencies in the world. You can go look on you can look up market data on the values of currencies. People do currency trading all day, and there's already competing currencies in the world. We already know multiple competing currencies works. It just within this country there can be multiple competing currencies. We don't just all got to be using the Federal Reserve notes. You know what I mean? We could have multiple options. I could go to the grocery store and see 5 different options right there. Boom, and that's the thing. Like, they don't have to have every option, but if they want my business, they should hopefully, accept whatever I'm gonna bring. But also, if I want to buy from the store, then I better have what they want. So it's free market type stuff. So that's the thing. So let's go back to fundamentals of the economy. Like I said, the incentive system with capitalism, it's profitable to create problems or to actually sell solutions to problems. So it's profitable to create problems in the first place. But there's also we have a whole lot of people. We're relatively advanced technologically. We're creating like synthetic materials, all types of stuff. Plastics are just floating in the ocean right now. We have like this runaway industrialization with very little oversight, very little control. And there has to be more or less government intervention. There has to be like decisions made, kind of like the Paris Climate Treaty. There has to be decisions made that say, look, we cannot allow this. For instance, let's say the nuclear reactors, Chernobyl, that exploded or was about to. I don't even know the details of it, but that right there, I'm like, that should not have even been allowed. That's way too dangerous. If that thing really did blow up and like spread radioactive stuff across the freaking globe, dude, that's way too dangerous. I don't care about a free market. I don't care about what you're talking about. That's billions of lives in danger. That's like evolution and ecology, the whole planet in danger. It's the same thing with fossil fuels, plastics, whatever. It's the same thing. And that stuff needs to be regulated, like extremely. Like we should not allow stuff that's like super dangerous to even happen. And that is going to take some type of democratic decision making. And honestly, with different countries, it's going to take some type of like agreement. You know, we all got to say, look, dude, like collectively agree that we're all not going to do this because it could be dangerous for us all. You know, and that's what the Paris Climate Treaty was. That's what they did with nuclear disarmament and stuff. It's just smart, dude. It's like that's the last thing we need is to like ruin our planet and put ourselves in danger because we. I mean, that's the thing. It's like these companies don't care. These companies will literally, if it's cheap, they'll dump random chemicals in the rivers and poison people. They don't care. I watched a documentary on that the other day. I forget what it's called, but I think it was one of those chemical companies. I forgot which. I forget what company it was. But yeah, they were dumping chemicals in the river, and dude's animals were dying with like black teeth, and then the dude eventually died of cancer. And, I mean, they didn't care. They just straight up dumped it in the river. Oops, just that's just and those chemicals they made are synthetic, and they're what you call biopersistent. They're not broken down by any natural processes. They're like synthetic chemicals that no biological thing on planet Earth can break down, and so it's just gonna stay there and it's poisonous. And there's a lot of stuff that people are creating like that on some industrial scale, like all these synthetic materials and stuff. All that needs to be regulated, cut like quick, and it's just stupid. It's stupid, poor. It's a lack of regulation. See, that's the thing. A lot of people are just about money, 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 and that's stupid, 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 stupid. Like we have to think beyond that. We have to think beyond simple capitalistic incentives. We have to think into just intelligent collective management of our situation. That's it. I mean, because if we're just doing capitalism, we're just going profit, 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 not caring about anything else. It's such a it's disastrous. It's reckless. It's destructive. It's very destructive. And I mean that's why we're screwing up our planet so hard because of this capitalistic system, the incentive system, which is capitalism, profits. And we need more of a just like conscious management of the whole situation. Like just make sure we got what we need. Live. It needs to be like a culture change too, probably. But as it stands with all this capitalism, it's stupid, dude. We need to move into like a whole new like management system where we can there's collective agreements made like, hey, let's quit ruining our planet because it's a really bad idea. Look, I understand you want to make your money, but look at what we're doing collectively. That's the thing. Like everybody thinks, oh, like sometimes I see people litter. They're like, oh, well, it's just one piece of trash. Well, if you got a billion people doing the same thing, that's a billion pieces of trash. It's the same thing with companies. They're like, oh, it's just a little bit of random chemical we poured in the river. You got all these other companies doing the same thing. Hello, it's crazy. And there needs to be a collective management that's competent and like overseeing the whole situation on planet Earth. There needs to be like a collective of all the countries that are like, yo, like a collective, kind of like the United Nations a little bit. You know, we need to get in there and just like make some agreements and manage the whole situation better. Cut out the drama, cut out the personal incentives, personal profits. You know, we have the resources to make sure to just put in the right places to make sure that everybody's taken care of. You know what I mean? We don't. I mean, there's a lot of greedy people and they just want money. They want to live these billionaire lifestyles. Well, guess what? They're starving people. You know how wrong it is that you're just trying to live a life of luxury and you have all these people slaving away because you're an economic manipulator while these other people are starving. You know what I mean? That should be shunned in itself, that type of behavior. And just overall, we should have a better management system. We should have better decisions being made, a collective decision making process, the United Nations, whatever it takes. And like I said, we have the resources for it. We have, instead of all this resource going towards conflict and stupid stuff, put it towards making sure everybody has what they need to live decent lives. We could have like a paradise out here. We could have a really nice lifestyle out here on planet Earth. You know what I mean? If these, for one, we get these greedy people quit being greedy, and we get rid of the for-profit system and move into something that's more suited for our civilization that we have now. It's just it worked for a little while. We moved into an entirely different paradigm with like industrial technology and billions of people. It's entirely different. Our effect is not like it was 200 years ago. You know, we're not just riding with some horses and like, no, now we're like burning up, we're drilling into the earth and burning up coal and stuff. It's like we're making some major it's not the same. It needs to be regulated, it needs to be managed. And it worked for a little while up until we're now a different thing collectively. The economy is a different beast. It's a different thing. It needs to be tamed, it needs to be controlled. It's like when you have a little puppy, you can let him gnaw on you a little bit. It's all good. When he turns to a monster, you gotta train him. You're like, hold on, we gotta do things differently here. And that's what it is. The economy has grown into this behemoth, and it needs to be regulated. It needs to be controlled. You know, and that's really what it is. That's really all it really is. And we need to make that adjustment. That's what we're. I mean, even in the future, it's probably gonna keep changing. We gotta adjust constantly. And I mean, just trying to stick with that old-fashioned capitalism, dude. Come on, man. And I don't know. I think I covered most bases with that. Yeah, I think we just need to move into like a collective management of the whole situation. For real, like just like competent, like just squash all the beef that people have, all the drama. You know, everybody has their personal companies and stuff. Squash all that. Let's come together collectively and, you know, make these collective decisions for our people, you know. Hope that makes sense, man. I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to do that. I just think it's necessary, man. It's a bad look for there to be like these greedy billionaires while people are like starving and like slaving away. It's just so wrong in my opinion. But collectively though, I just think just for the sake of our future, for the planet, for the whole thing, dude, it like something needs to give, dude. Something needs to give hardcore. And like I said, a collective management seems like the way, man. It really does. And I don't know, man. So that's my spiel for this moment. We'll get into some other stuff later. I talk about a lot of stuff all the time, so we'll see what I come up with next. I'm gonna leave it at that. I thank you guys for listening. I'm out of here.